Hey, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unlimited Seating. My guest today is Tia Hopkins. Tia is a cybersecurity executive. She's currently the Field Chief Technology Officer and Chief Cybersecurity Risk Strategist at eCentire. Tia is also an educator, a mentor, a speaker, and published author. She's passionate about creating opportunity and diversity in the cybersecurity industry. Tia, good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us at Unlimited Seating.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm going to start by congratulating you, Tia. I know that you got promoted into your current role just in February, so it's still fairly new, even though you've been at eCentire for a few years now.
Yes, thank you.
So, Tia, thank you for being open to sharing your journey with us here, right? I think the intent of Unlimited Seating is listening to very candid conversations with female role models in the workplace. And I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I think my very first question that I wanted to ask you was, there aren't many people, Tia, honestly, that look like you and are cybersecurity executives today, right? A senior role in tech. You've won a number of awards in the tech and cybersecurity space as well. What got you interested and excited about technology?
It's a great question. I think I've always had the knack for technology, but back when I was younger, there was not a lot of it wasn't popular, right? And my family wasn't into it. I didn't know a lot of people that were into it. And so it was just like this thing. Everyone was just like, you're great with computers. My mom bought me my first computer and I took it apart, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so, I ended up going to school, making a lot of mistakes, dropping out a bunch of times. But eventually I did land a role with the phone company, and it was installing high-speed internet, but it was adjacent obviously to technology because you're getting people's computers online. And so that's how I first dipped my toe in with tech. And I just kind of latched onto it more and more from there, started teaching myself how to do things, building labs with cheap computer parts, and then eventually transitioned to a focus specifically on cybersecurity.
Okay. And but growing up, did you necessarily have like role models in the tech space? It seems like it's something you taught yourself. You had an interest, you were passionate about it, you went about learning it for yourself.
Yeah, I kind of did it all in the vacuum. The role model question I think is hard, but not hard for me to answer. My one role model in life was my mom, and she's not a tech person at all. She just raised me to believe in myself and to know and understand and be passionate about the things I believed in, and told me all the time I could be whoever I wanted to be. And so that's just what I went off and did. I followed once I learned that passion is an important part of being motivated. So a lot of times we go out and do things that we have to do, or do things someone tell us that we should do. We're not passionate about it. It makes it really hard to accomplish those things. So once I figured out what I was passionate about, and my mom, in my ear, and the things that she taught me, I just went after it. I didn't model myself after anyone because, like you said earlier, no one looked like me. So there was really no one for me to say, or at least that I was aware of. I'm sure that there were women out there doing this, but there's not a lot of visibility or representation. That's the problem. So I'm like, well, there's no one for me to kind of tap and see what I can do. There's no one reaching out to me to kind of pull me forward and say, hey, you're talented and do these things. So yeah, I did have to figure it out a lot on my own. I made a ton of mistakes, but I learned a lot of lessons in those failures.
So Tia, you said you started out with one role, but I've seen you've had a number of roles in different companies, right? And then you've grown in each one of them. How did you find that, right? Getting an entry into one organization and then growing through it. Did you have that support? Did you have people who reached out to you and said, hey, I see that you're great at what you do. Here's an opportunity, go and try a bigger role. Just how much of it was a mix of you yourself going and reaching out to people and for opportunities, and how much of it was other people inviting you as well?
I think prior to eCentire, a lot of it was just me doing what I felt like I needed to do to be ready for whatever came along. Because I often get the question, well, how did you plan your career path and what did you do to get, where you wanted to be? But my answer is always, yeah, I didn't really plan. I don't know that this is the path that I would have chosen. I'm just really, I'm really adamant about just being knowledgeable, being able to add value to conversations, because when you're smart, it gets you noticed, right? But you have to be informed in order to remain relevant. So when these opportunities began to present themselves, at first, I was just like, where is all this coming from? Because not to get too personal, just given the way that I grow up, I'm not exactly used to, folks looking for me. I'm actually quite used to the opposite, rejection and things like that. So when folks did, and organizations started reaching out to me to do things, I'm like, well, what is it that they're seeing in me? Because obviously I'm doing something right. I need to do more of that. So I started to ask questions about folks that I work with, like, what is it that you like about working with me? Or when we would have a call together, can we do a debrief? What did you like? What didn't you like? How can I get better? But I've always been really big on building relationships. I think that my relationship building, and I wasn't even doing it on purpose really, but I think it was a huge part of my success because one, people get to know who you are, they get to know what you're interested in, they understand your work ethic, but you're also trying to help them solve problems within their organizational unit by driving efficiencies and reducing friction to how that organizational unit works, within yours. So that was, just throughout my career, just grit, right place, right time, grinding away. But once I got to eCentire, the I guess the phrase I like to use is I feel like my career was just shot out of a cannon. Kerry Bailey is a fantastic CEO. He loves to see folks just be successful. He likes to provide opportunities to set individuals up for success. He's dedicated to the success of the company, obviously, but he's such a people person, and I firmly believe it starts at the top. And so, we're a privately held company. We just, reached unicorn status, got an over $300 million investment. So we're doing really well. But 4 years ago, when a little over 4 years ago, when Carrie and the executive team came into eCentire after a big investment from Warburg Pincus, they were having a town hall and just talking about the future of the company and the goals. And he said something that stuck with me, that the opportunity you have here is unlike the opportunity that many people will ever have in their career. And he said a lot. It was like an hour-long town hall, but that's the thing I remember, more than anything. So we were having a sales kickoff one year, and I walked up to him and I said, you said this thing at the town hall, and I want to know what you mean by that. And approaching him and asking that question changed my life because he gave me answers and he provided me visibility into the business side of things, and stretched me and put me in situations that gave me the opportunity to grow. And the biggest thing was, like, this isn't to be looked at as, oh, okay, so the CEO just was feeding her things and that's how she grew. It was not giving me opportunities. It was giving me visibility. It was stretching me as an individual and as a business person. And it was up to me to take those opportunities and turn them into something. But the biggest impact for me was that it showed me so much about myself that I didn't know. I didn't know how capable I was of making very effective business decisions, or leading teams, or solving really tough strategic issues. I didn't know how much I loved it. And the exposure he gave me, beyond, what I've been able to do in my career, what it did for me is just something that I'll just be eternally grateful to him for. So that to my answer around it being a combination, just to bring it back to the question, it was being provided with the visibility into what the opportunities look like, being given the opportunity to get into things that are outside what I was doing, but also taking those opportunities and leveraging them and continuing to build relationships to solve real problems and drive the success of the organization.
That's a great story, Tia. And I think what you said there is very important, right? It's not just getting the opportunity. I think you were ready for those stretch challenges, right? Because you built your expertise. I think that's something really important for people to know, right? Visibility is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, there was a pilot executive mentorship program that he kicked off, and then announced it to the company that they were doing this, and I was like the the test subject, and I was invited to a board retreat. So to your point, double-edged sword. This is my CEO saying we have this high potential employee. We're gonna get her involved in these situations. I could have crashed and burned, So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so you need to keep working to be ready for that. And I think it's a very
Yes.
important message for
Yes.
everyone who's trying to, grow in their career to know.
Yeah. One of my mottos is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I remember you talked a lot about relationships, Tia, and how that's kind of been a constant thread for you. And I remember something from when you and I spoke a couple of weeks back. You said you were very shy growing up,
Yeah.
right? Tell me about,
Yes.
I really loved your story about what you did and how you took certain actions that really helped you.
Uh yeah, so I grew up kind of I come from very humble beginnings. We moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I was always the new girl in class. And then I was like a nerd, so I was in all the honors courses, and all the popular kids were off doing other things. And so, yeah, it taught me at a very young age to not really seek validation, to kind of put my head down and do the things that I needed to do. But, as I transitioned into adult, it kind of morphed into me closing myself off to the world, not necessarily not taking feedback. I always want to get better. Another thing, I have a lot of sayings. One another thing I always say is that even NFL players go to football practice. Like there's always a way to get better. So I'm always looking for feedback and ways to grow and things like that, but not, I guess, not really caring what people think of me, so to speak, in a way that it penetrates me and makes me feel negatively about myself. But then, back to the earlier point that I was making, when I started to be contacted to speak and to do these things, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even like people like that. Networking, who networks? Who does that? I don't want to do that, But when it started to happen more and more, I got to the point that I started to feel irresponsible for not answering the call, because I was like, well, clearly I have this platform and it's not about me. It's about speaking up for people that don't have a voice, right? Being a voice for the voiceless. And it's not about being in the spotlight. It's about, here's this light. I'm not going to shine it on me. I'm going to take it and turn it so I can light a path for others. And that's not something that happened overnight. There was a lot of soul searching involved in that, because once you are in the limelight or the spotlight, so to speak, you're vulnerable, right? People are judging you, and maybe they don't like the way you speak, or they don't like what you wear, but the motivation behind it for me was being able to help others, right? The reason my journey was so hard and so long and I made so many mistakes is because there was no one doing it that I could see, that was visible. And I wanted to be a representation of the possible for other folks like me, looking to say, can I do this? Can I not do this? And that's still what motivates me. I would never, if I had sat down one day and written out what my career journey would look like and where I would end up, it would not have ended with a leadership role and being the influencer that I'm considered to be in the cybersecurity industry today. But making a positive impact on the community is one of the most important things in the world to me. So that's why I do it. I hope that's the direction you were looking for with that question.
Yeah, that's one thing that you did tell me about, hey, kind of realizing yourself that you do have a responsibility. The other thing that I do remember you said was about football.
Yeah.
I think you said you
Oh,
started playing
yes.
football.
Yes.
Was it in college or in high school, which really
Yeah.
helped you?
When I graduated high school in Greenville, South Carolina, and then I moved to Miami, Florida. What a world of difference. I was in the marching band. I played basketball in high school, and I went to college on an academic scholarship. And so I wasn't involved in sports. I wasn't involved in music, and I kind of missed the camaraderie. And a friend of mine that I'd met while I was living there said, hey, you should come to this football tryout. And I was like, football? What are you talking about? She's like, yeah, women's tackle football. All right. And so I go and I suit up, put the pads on and everything. And I fell in love with it. I'm like, wait a minute. So I can kind of get really close to physically assaulting someone, and there's no problem with it. So I was addicted to it. I played for 12 years, but the point of the story is football changed my life. I was a very, very, very low confidence, low self-esteem, low self-image individual, just, because of my situation and the way that I grew up. And I didn't have a lot of wins. I was, still making a lot of mistakes, Didn't have a lot of guidance. I've left home, right? I'm figuring it out on my own. I'm not
Yeah.
telling my mom what's going on. But football, I say all the time, and this isn't my quote, but it does not, um, football does not build character, it reveals it. And football very quickly tells you who you are. And once you figure out who you are, you have to decide who you want to be. And I became the person that wanted to stretch myself beyond myself and become better. And it just enabled me to build so much confidence. Like when I would line up and see another woman across from me, I'm looking at her like it's going to be you or it's going to be me, and it is not going to be me. And when you start to experience that success and you've got your team around you cheering, because I mean, football is a team sport like no other sport, but no matter what, your team's got your back, even when you're down. And when you do something great, everyone's cheering for you, and you can see yourself getting better and better and better and moving to different positions and nailing plays that you were struggling with. It just teaches you that you can do things, right? When you tell yourself, well, maybe I shouldn't, and then you go out and do it, you're like, holy cow, I want to do more of that. And that translated into my life too. Like I was saying, I dropped out of college a number of times. 4 times I dropped out of college before I actually completed a degree. And that same sort of addictive success happened once I finished my bachelor's. I went into my first master's and my second master's without stopping, and I got a bunch of cybersecurity certifications at the same time. And now I'm pursuing my executive MBA and PhD simultaneously. Like you said, adjunct professor as well. And so it's just all about confidence. Another quote I love is confidence has no competition. And so once I experienced that and started to build upon that, it translated directly into my career, my personal life, and just changed who I am as a person. So I firmly believe football changed and probably saved my life.
That's a very good story, Atia. Just it's a story for others, but it's your life, right? It's kind of like you said, it really built and changed a lot of things for you. Because when I hear it, right, and you talk about dropping college, you also refer to like mistakes. But if I look at it, you say you're an honor student, you were doing very well through school. And what I was going to actually try and get a bit more out of you next was, how did you deal when things didn't go so well, right? What got you out of say a spot where you weren't really feeling your best self? How did you talk yourself out of it?
I think it's important to be grounded, understand your why. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing? Are you passionate about it? What moves you? It's important because one, it helps you focus. You know, what is it that I need to take on? What should I be involved in? What do I need to continue to work on, to get better at, to become even better at this? But I think even more importantly, when it gets hard, you have to remind yourself why you started doing it in the first place. And to go back to the example of dropping out of school, I mean, there were a number of reasons that I dropped out. Wrong program, lack of guidance, lack of financial resources, lack of time. But the main reason was that I was not going to any of those programs. I wasn't signed up for any of those programs because it was what I wanted to do with my life. It was, you go to school, you graduate high school, you go to college. That's what you do. You pick a program, you go. You know, I'm a junior in high school and it's SATs, and you have to figure out where you're going to go to school. And it's very important. You want to submit your application letters, just pressure, pressure, pressure. But none of the reasons for what I was doing were my own.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of why it was so easy for me to drop those things and drop out 4 times when things got so hard, because they weren't something I was passionate about. It was just something I felt like I had to do for someone else. And so when I went to school and finished, it was because I chose it, because I knew my why. I knew where I was headed, and that was my fuel. That was my motivation. That's what kept me going. People ask me all the time, well, do you think a PhD is going to advance your career? I mean, you're at a pretty high level. I'm like, absolutely not. I don't think a PhD is going to advance my career, but I want it for myself. And I have a very specific reason why I want it for myself. And so when I don't want to be spending my weekend doing research and writing 12 to 15 page papers, I remind myself of my why. And my why is what I constantly leverage to dig me out of holes all the time.
Yeah, that's knowing your why is, I'm surprised that that's it's something that you seem to have realized fairly early on, or earlier on in your life. I think it's hard. I would say that sometimes it varies for me, the why. So I'm amazed that you realized it early on in life, and that's kind of your guiding force. Thanks for sharing that, Tia.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I did want to ask, right? You said that you were picked for a kind of an executive leadership program at eCentire, and you've had roles at different companies as well. Did you ever feel, Tia, that you were walking into a room or a meeting for the first time, and people looked at you and judged you, thinking, "I don't think that she knows what she would be talking about. Maybe she's the diversity, she's got the diversity ticket into this meeting." Have you felt that? And what's your mindset when you encounter that reaction?
Yeah, a couple of answers for that. I think so first I'll be very clear. I've never felt like that walking into an internal meeting. I
Okay.
don't think I've ever felt as supported in my career as I feel at eCentire. It's just a fantastic company with a fantastic culture. However, I do lead, attend, participate in a lot of external meetings on behalf of eCentire. I do a lot of speaking engagements and things like that. And so I wouldn't say I walk into a room and I see the faces say, "Oh, I don't think she's going to know, what she's doing." But there is the kind of don't know what to expect. And the comparison is when I walk into a meeting and, maybe one of my male counterparts or another just male from another company or whatever is leading the meeting or presenting first, there's just this automatic validation that there's going to be value, whatever this individual presents, whatever this man presents, there's going to be value out of it. You automatically see the head nodding and everything, even when there's not a point being made. You look around and there's a lot of head nodding, right?
Yeah.
But for me, there's like this warm up that has to happen. The really really old cars back in the day where you had to go outside like 30 minutes before you had to go anywhere, turn on the car and warm it up so it'd be ready to go. I walk in having to prove myself before my audience sometimes starts to pick up what I'm putting down. And I noticed that, there would be a lot of kind of just reading me. And then all of a sudden it's okay, yeah, okay, we get that, and it used to bother me. Like, why is it like this? Like, I'm a professional. I work just as hard as the men around me, and probably 10 times as hard, because I never want anyone to be able to tell me I'm missing something because and they just want a reason to count me out, or to your point, to say, well, she's the diversity play. Because like I said, there are a lot of boxes that I can check, and I'm not so I'm not shy. I'll say I have moments where I'm like, am I? And then I'm like, no, stop playing. No, you're not. But I've now gotten to the point where my what I say to myself when I feel that a meeting is going to go that direction, I just say, they're going to learn today. I'm going to show them. I love the opportunity where I walk into it's an opportunity, right? It's not a misfortune. It is unfortunate that people still think this way, but I don't see it as a misfortune. I see it as an opportunity to create a believer, to create a follower. Because if I walk into a room and you expect me to be amazing, then even if I'm amazing, I was just normal to you. But if I walk
Yeah.
into a room and you don't expect anything out of me, or you expect very little out of me, or you expect me to fall on my face, and then I blow your mind, I just turned you into a fan. So when I walk into situations like that, I'm all about creating fans, and it hasn't failed me yet. We can't let those things, like, make us feel uncomfortable or insecure, or dredge up that horrible, horrible imposter syndrome that folks talk about, because there's a reason you're in that room. There's a reason you're in a role that got you to that room, right? And I'm a person that nothing in my life has ever been handed to me, and I don't believe it's going to start now. I have been provided opportunities, but again, like I said, we're given opportunities every day, and you either turn them into something or you don't. So yeah, another opportunity. You'll be a believer by the time I walk out of this room.
And that's a good mindset to have, right? And I wanted you to, I wanted to hear from you what you say, because I think that's great insight for people listening to take back with them, right? It's not you're not in an unfortunate situation. One, it's a great opportunity to be in that room and in that meeting and with that audience. And then, like you said, it's an opportunity. So I think it's a very good way to think about it. When you were talking about, having to warm up, and wait for people to listen to you and warm up to what you're saying. I just remembered, there's many times I've heard when there's a female who's promoted to a senior leadership role. There are times when I hear this. First, there's a bit of skepticism, right? And then I hear male colleagues sometimes say that, she's actually very smart, or she's really good. You just reminded me of that. It's like,
are you surprised by that? It's so shocking. I will tell you though, I do wonder. Well, I don't anymore. I think I've gotten to a point in my career where it just doesn't even matter, because I think I've kind of proven that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about. But before I got to this point, there was a bit of me that kind of wondered, am I seen as being great or stand out or so awesome because I am diverse, right? If I had a male counterpart with a similar background having done the same things, would there be all the hoopla? Would it be so awesome? Or is it awesome, because I'm a Black lesbian female, young, whatever, tattoos, whatever you want to add to me, neurodiverse, all those things. Or is it that I'm just awesome? That is something that I have wondered, but I've put it behind me. But it's easy to say, do you think I'm amazing because you're not used to people looking like me achieve the things that I'm able to achieve, or operate the way that I'm able to operate?
Yeah. And I think everyone at some point thinks, like you said, I can say that I'm an Indian woman. You can say you have a number of more adjectives to add before the woman, right? And I think sometimes we all go through that same self-doubt. But I also look at it that the number of opportunities that are available to you are probably less, or were probably less than they were available to a male colleague, right? A male peer that you had, and you've taken every opportunity and kind of knocked it out of the park. I think that
have to. They're few and far between, right?
Yes, yeah, totally. So what I love even more than all that you've done in your kind of area of expertise, Tia, I'll see that you're founder and CEO for Empower Cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And I also see that you're a football coach. Tell us a little bit about it. What drove you to start Empower Cybersecurity, and also the football coaching piece?
I think they're similarly themed. I like I said, made a lot of mistakes, had a lot of false starts, tripped up a lot. And I don't believe that I'm here to create shortcuts, but I do believe that my lessons learned and my failures can be leveraged to help others avoid making some of the mistakes that I made, and make more informed decisions as they're, navigating their careers. But where they're sort of similarly veined for me is, I do think a big part of the gap that we have in this industry is partly due to the fact that there's a lot of work to do in tech in terms of being more diverse, whether it's based on race, ethnicity, gender, ability, neurodiversity, whatever that is. We have a lot of work to do. But for me, I feel best able to represent women of color, and this is to the point of the nonprofit. But where football also relates to that, I mean, one, when it was time for me to hang up my cleats, I was like, what am I going to do now? But I did have the opportunity to coach, and I love that, because what's missing is the confidence. Mm-hmm. And so football for me it's a constant life lesson where you just happen to play football at the same time. I am about teaching my players about life through football. And it's the same with Empower Cybersecurity. It's less about the hard skills and getting the certification, and more about who you are and how you present yourself. So the coaching aspect of it is, one, I just can't walk away from football, but two, it is a fantastic platform to help women build their confidence and teach life lessons that they can go off and take into their careers and crush it. A lot of the most successful women I know were D1 athletes or, play really competitive sports. And then, to empower cybersecurity, I just wanted to have an impact. I wanted to give back. I'm a firm believer in lifting as I climb. And if I learn something and I don't turn around and share it with 10,000 people, I feel like I may as well not have learned it. And where it started is I was like, well, I'm going to mentor 4 or 5 people. And I was like, well, maybe I'll mentor 10 people. And I just didn't feel like it was enough. And I was like, where is everybody? And I can't be the only one out here doing this thing. So I wanted to get women that were interested in cybersecurity, women that were already in cybersecurity and trying to navigate, and women that had figured it out together to just have a safe space to be and not have to worry about being judged for asking a question that someone may be perceived as silly or feeling insecure when they go to a conference and they're one of maybe 2 women or 2 women of color there and afraid to ask questions about what to do after the conference or whatever it is, and there's no shortage of information available on the internet and how to break into cybersecurity or what certifications to go after, but what's lacking is how those things apply to the individual. So Empower Cybersecurity is all about creating a safe space where we can focus on the individual and build that confidence. I mean, at this point, the hard skills, certifications, education, all that's table stakes, but who are you beyond that? And how are you going to go out there and compete? And you have to be confident in order to do that.
Yeah. So it's much more than the technical skills, kind of building that all-rounded, I guess, to get them ready to compete, like you said.
Right.
So, this we talked about this last 2 weeks back as well. You're working your PhD, you have your day job, you then coaching, you have Empower, and I think I think I heard what drives you is your kind of you keep your why in front of you every day, right? And remind yourself in case there are some of those days where it's not at the forefront. Yeah, one more question before we wrap up, right? As a senior leader, and I know you do a lot outside of eCentire as well, but as a senior leader now at your organization, what do you think companies need to be doing more of, right, or less of, to one, bring more women into the organization? And we'll keep it to tech right now, right, because that's kind of your area of expertise. One, to bring them in, and then also to help them grow in the industry. What do you think are some good do's and don'ts?
I think representation is big. If if a group of 10 men approach me and say, you can do this job, you can be great at it, and I'm looking around like, well, who's doing it? And they're like, we are. I'm not gonna believe it as much as if there's at least someone in there that reminds me of myself in some kind of way, right? So and I know that there are organizations that have a lot more work to do than others when it comes to being diverse, especially with women. But there are organizations that have a lot of women in leadership roles, and they just need to be more visible. They need to be more vocal. And part of that is the organization providing these women the opportunity to do it. And part of it is women wanting to speak up, right? Having the confidence to speak up and say, yes, I am in a position where I can turn around and, pull up a chair for others that come behind me. And then allyship for me, there's a ton of different directions to go with that. But as it relates to driving more diversity with women in organizations, once women come into these roles, have some kind of growth plan for them, have a mentor available to them, right? Have a mentor available that looks like them, as well as a mentor that doesn't look like them. I was asked the question, how important is diversity in mentorship? And I think it's incredibly important to have a mentor that understands you, who you are, where you come from, and can relate on that level. But it's also important to have a mentor that has seen things that you haven't seen, that has gone places that you haven't been. Otherwise, you may not be stretched. You might get both of those in one, right? That would be total jackpot. But you want to make sure that you have someone that understands where you are, but also can help you understand where it is that you want to go. And that's what I mean by allyship, right? Don't just bring women into the organization to increase your diversity percentages and then just plop them down and not set them up for success, creating a culture for these women where they understand that it's not just, we're just bringing you in to do this thing. It is the mission of the organization, not just a trend because it's what's popular right now, because hiring diverse talent is all the rage, sure, but what does your retention look like, right? If you were able to increase your diversity by 10% in 2020, right, but then I check on you again in 2021 and all those candidates are gone, have you really moved the needle? So I think representation is huge to encourage more women to even want to consider tech as a career. We should also start younger, high school, maybe even middle school, to make sure that young girls understand that these careers in tech are available to them as well. I had a grown adult woman, probably older than me, come up to me and say, what kind of roles in tech do you think are available to women? Like what kind of roles should a woman look for in tech? And I thought she was joking, because my answer was, well, all of them. What do you mean? I don't see any barriers. And so it's a combination of all of that, but actually raising I think women are coming up a little differently, given this generation, but making sure our daughters are confident, making sure, like my mom did, our daughters understand that they can be whoever they want to be, what that, regardless of what that looks like. But yeah, back to the corporate thing, make your women leaders more visible, make them advocates for bringing more women into the organization, and make sure your culture is ready to receive them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Bring them in and then give that structure to grow. And one thing I've realized, as I'm working this podcast and I try to get more guests on, some women don't want to call themselves role models, right? They're like, I don't think so. So I do see that. And so sometimes I just have to coax the person and say, no, you've done so much, and I'm sure you have some interesting stories to share that somebody else can relate to. So I think that's the point.
Is one person you can reach, do it. When I started Empowered Cybersecurity, I didn't have any lofty goals. I didn't do it because I wanted to be recognized. I said, if I reach one person and help one person change her life and be successful in this industry, I could close up shop and consider myself a success. So, if one woman reaches 5 people, but 20 women we reach 20 people, that's huge. And then when these women start to come up and see mentors and realize mentorship helped them be successful, it creates a domino effect, right? Because then they want to turn around and give back. And so, yes, a lot of it is on the industry to institute change, but a lot of it is on us as well. Probably, I mean, it's a pretty similar balance of the load that's got to be carried.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You shared some really good and powerful stories, and thanks for sharing a lot about your background, how you started out, and some of the, the mistakes that you made and learned from, right? And I think the biggest thanks is for how you're so passionate about paying it forward, right?
We have to
hearing much more about Empower.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here with us.